welcome back. And today I'll be discussing regarding the energetics of glycolysis under aerobic and anaerobic condition and the different fates of pyruvate and NADH molecules, right? So first we'll talk about the energetics of glycolysis under aerobic condition. So what happens under aerobic condition is that three important steps produce ATP, right? The first being during the conversion of glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate to 1,3-bisphosphoglycerate, during which two NADH molecules are produced. So each NADH molecule is said to produce 3 ATP molecules. Therefore, from 2 NADH molecules, we get 6 ATP molecules. The next is the first substrate level phosphorylation step. That is during the conversion of 1,3-bisphosphoglycerate to 3-phosphoglycerate, during which 2 ATP molecules are produced. Again, the final step of glycolysis, that is the second substrate level phosphorylation step, during conversion of phosphoenol pyruvate to pyruvate, catalyzed by pyruvate kinase, we obtain 2 more ATP molecules. So in total, how many ATP molecules are generated? 6 plus 2 plus 2, that is totally 10 ATP molecules are generated. But we shouldn't forget 2 ATP molecules were used in the preparatory phase, right? During the investment phase, 2 ATP molecules were utilized, that is during the first and third step, right? So subtracting those 2 ATP molecules, we get totally 8 ATP molecules generated during the aerobic glycolysis, right? So under anaerobic condition, what happens? Under anaerobic condition, the electron transport chain doesn't operate. So ATP is only formed by substrate level phosphorylation, right? Hence the energy yield via glycolysis in the absence of oxygen is only 2 ATP molecules per molecule of glucose. So speaking about both aerobic and anaerobic energetics, under aerobic condition, totally 8 ATP molecules are generated, and under anaerobic condition, totally 2 ATP molecules are generated, right? Okay, so this doesn't end the carbohydrate metabolism, right? Glycolysis itself is not the ultimatum of carbohydrate metabolism or energy generation. Why am I telling that way? Yes, as you have seen while explaining the energetics of glycolysis, I had mentioned about NADH molecule getting converted to ATP molecule. So we'll have to even study about how that NADH molecule is converted to ATP or is extracted. ATP is extracted from the reducing equivalent. Also from pyruvate, the ultimate product of glycolysis, right? So ATP is not the only energy that is obtained from glycolysis. Other than ATP, energy is obtained from NADH and pyruvate. So we shall discuss what are the different fates of the so obtained pyruvate and NADH molecule, right? So speaking about the fate of pyruvate, it is mainly decided based on the condition and the cell type, right? What pyruvate becomes is decided based on the condition, also on the cell type. Under aerobic condition, we'll be studying the different fates of pyruvate, and under anaerobic condition, we'll be studying what happens to pyruvate, right? So here in this diagram, you may notice what are the sources that generate pyruvate. So it is not glycolysis alone that produces pyruvate. There are amino acids that are involved in generation of pyruvate like cysteine, alanine, serine, lactate, malic acid, etc. Right? Also here I have made a picture so you will get a clear-cut idea what are the different other fates of pyruvate. Okay? Pyruvate under aerobic condition, it's converted to what? Under aerobic condition, it is converted to acetyl CoA mainly, basically. Okay. Under anaerobic condition, it is reduced to lactate. Also, it's converted to ethanol. So other fates of pyruvate include formation of malic acid, alanine, also oxaloacetic acid. Right. So we'll discuss the fate under each condition. Right. Pyruvate under aerobic condition, what happens? Keep one thing in mind, the end product of glycolysis, pyruvate, itself cannot enter the next phase, that is TCA cycle. It has to be converted into a form that gets access into TCA cycle. So pyruvate has to undergo certain modification so that it becomes fit to pass into the TCA cycle. For pyruvate to pass into this TCA cycle, it has to be under aerobic condition, it has to be modified into acetyl-CoA molecule. Okay, so mainly we have to know the location wherein pyruvate undergoes conversion to acetyl-CoA. Up until now, we studied the various different reactions that occur during glycolysis, and all these reactions are said to occur in the cytoplasm, right? The end product pyruvate is also left in the cytoplasm. Now, the so left pyruvate has to move into the mitochondrial matrix, right? For it to be converted into acetyl-CoA so that it becomes easy for it to enter into TCA cycle. So pyruvate enters from cytoplasm into mitochondrial matrix for getting modified into acetyl-CoA molecule. Not only that, it enters TCA cycle. There, after entering, it undergoes other modification steps wherein it's oxidized to carbon dioxide, and what else is obtained? NADH and FADH2 is generated. NADH from glycolysis and TCA cycle is reoxidized to NAD plus in mitochondria via the ETC. ETC is nothing but electron transport chain. So these are the certain glimpses that I am giving you regarding the fate of fate of pyruvate under aerobic condition, right? The pyruvate obtained from glycolysis, which was present in the cytoplasm, has now entered into the mitochondrial matrix where it undergoes certain modificatory steps, itself getting converted into acetyl-CoA so that it gets access into the Krebs cycle, right? There, what happens? It is further modified into, or ultimately it is oxidized to carbon dioxide, and NADH and FADH2 are generated. The NADH obtained from glycolysis and from TCA cycle, they are reoxidized to NAD plus in the mitochondria via the electron transport chain. We'll discuss each of these in detail in the subsequent slides. Right? Reduced by NADH to lactate, catalyzed by lactate dehydrogenase. Right? And the reoxidation of NADH via lactate formation, it allows glycolysis to continue even in the absence of oxygen by regenerating sufficient NAD plus, right? So you can see here, during glycolysis, what happens? 2 NAD plus molecules were utilized during the glyceraldehyde to 1,3-bisphosphoglycerate step. 2 NAD plus molecules were utilized, reducing NAD plus to NADH, right? The so released NADH is after the obtaining the end product, that is pyruvate. In the muscle cell, what happens? It is converted to lactate. During the conversion of pyruvate to lactate, the so produced NADH is reoxidized to NAD plus, allowing glycolysis to continue even in the absence of oxygen. That is what is shown here, right? So now we'll discuss the fate of pyruvate, that is the reduction of pyruvate to lactate in detail. The reduction of pyruvate by NADH to lactate is catalyzed by the enzyme name is very important, lactate dehydrogenase. Also keep one thing in mind, for the activity of lactate dehydrogenase, NADH and proton is a prerequisite, right? NADH and proton is a prerequisite for the activity of lactate dehydrogenase. What happens here? Pyruvate is reduced to lactate. So CH3COCOO minus was the structure of pyruvate. Now it's converted to CH3CHOHCOO minus. So what are the two atoms added here? H from NADH is added, right? CH3CHOHCOO minus, and one more proton was added. Therefore, what happens? Pyruvate is converted or it is reduced to lactate. Where does this reaction occur? This reaction takes place in cells when the amount of oxygen is limiting. Even in the absence of oxygen, this reaction occurs as in muscle cell during intense activity. So this is the fate of pyruvate under anaerobic condition where there is limiting amount of oxygen, right? Next, under anaerobic condition, one more fate. Pyruvate has another fate wherein it is converted to ethanol. But where does this occur? This occurs in yeast and several other microorganisms. So what happens here is that during conversion of pyruvate to ethanol, there are two intermediary steps that occurs. First being the decarboxylation of pyruvate. Pyruvate is decarboxylated. D, the word D refers to removal. So removal of the carboxyl group, that is carbon dioxide is released in the first step during conversion of pyruvate to ethanol, right? And this is catalyzed by the enzyme pyruvate decarboxylase. And very important thing, for the activity of pyruvate decarboxylase, TPP, a cofactor, is a prerequisite, right? During the conversion of ethanol to pyruvate to ethanol, the first step being decarboxylation is accomplished by the enzyme pyruvate decarboxylase with the aid of cofactor TPP, right? During the second step, so what happens? Pyruvate is acted upon by pyruvate decarboxylase, releasing carbon dioxide. It forms acetaldehyde. Okay, an intermediary product, acetaldehyde, is formed. The so obtained acetaldehyde is acted upon by alcohol dehydrogenase in the presence of NADH, and finally it is converted to ethanol. As you can see in the slide, pyruvate is first acted upon by pyruvate decarboxylase, the pink portion releasing carbon dioxide. A proton is added and carbon dioxide is released, resulting in the formation of acetaldehyde. In the subsequent reaction, NADH is utilized by alcohol dehydrogenase, converting acetaldehyde to ethanol. And where does this occur? This occurs in yeast and several other microorganisms under anaerobic condition. Therefore, under anaerobic condition, pyruvate has two fates. One is in muscle cell, it undergoes reduction into lactate acted upon by the enzyme lactate dehydrogenase. In yeast and other microorganism, pyruvate has got a different fate when it is converted to a alcohol, that is ethanol, in a two-step reaction. First it is decarboxylated and then it undergoes reduction reaction wherein it's finally converted to ethanol, right? So now speaking about the fate of pyruvate under aerobic condition. Under aerobic condition, pyruvate is transported into mitochondria by a proton sympater. Okay, the ultimate product of glycolysis that was left in the cytoplasm has to now move into the mitochondrial matrix so that it gets converted into a product, that is acetyl-CoA, which can finally have access into TCA cycle for its final reduction into water and carbon dioxide, right? In mitochondrial matrix, pyruvate is oxidatively decarboxylated by a big enzyme complex, that is pyruvate dehydrogenase. Pyruvate dehydrogenase itself is a larger and very stable enzyme complex. It consists of three enzymes, E1, E2, E3, that is pyruvate dehydrogenase, dihydrolipoate transacetylase and dihydrolipoate dehydrogenase, right? Pyruvate dehydrogenase complex has got three enzymes: pyruvate dehydrogenase, dihydrolipoate transacetylase and dihydrolipoate dehydrogenase. So this enzyme complex plays a very important role in converting pyruvate to acetyl-CoA inside mitochondrial matrix. Location is very important, right? It's an irreversible reaction, and we can say that conversion of pyruvate to acetyl-CoA is a link between glycolysis and other pathways of aerobic cellular respiration, right? So we shall see what exactly happens. Pyruvate, the end product of glycolysis, which is present in the cytoplasm, has now is now moving slowly into the mitochondrial matrix via a symporter, right? It travels through a channel in the outer membrane and an proton pyruvate symporter in the inner membrane to reach the mitochondrial matrix, right? Pyruvate here is oxidized via pyruvate dehydrogenase complex to an acetyl group and carbon dioxide. Along with it, NADH is as well released. NADH and FADH2 is produced. In total, during the conversion of pyruvate to acetyl-CoA, what are the other two things that are produced? That is, one is NADH and FADH2. During this process, the acetyl group is the acetyl group is transferred to coenzyme A. So what is the necessity to transfer the acetyl group to coenzyme A? That I'll talk later. Yeah. Now speaking about the components of pyruvate dehydrogenase complex, this enzyme is a large complex enzyme. It's a highly integrated complex of containing two components. The first being the catalytic part and the other being the regulatory component. The catalytic part contains three enzymes, as I said: pyruvate dehydrogenase, dihydrolipoyl transacetylase, and dihydrolipoyl dehydrogenase, right? And the regulatory enzymes involve pyruvate dehydrogenase kinase and pyruvate dehydrogenase phosphatase, right? So for the effective functioning of the pyruvate dehydrogenase complex, it requires 5 important coenzymes, without which it will be non-functional, without which, right? So which are the 5 important coenzymes that are very much necessary for its activity? Let's list them out. That is, one is thiamine pyrophosphate, lipoic acid, CoASH, FAD and NAD. All these coenzymes participate in the overall reaction wherein pyruvate is converted to acetyl-CoA. So the reactions that are catalyzed by pyruvate dehydrogenase complex could be categorized into 3 important steps. Okay, the first being decarboxylation, the second oxidation, and finally transfer of the resultant acetyl group to coenzyme A. These steps are coupled to preserve the free energy derived from the decarboxylation step to drive the formation of NADH and acetyl-CoA. So now what happens during the conversion of pyruvate to acetyl-CoA in the mitochondrial matrix with the help of pyruvate dehydrogenase complex consisting of 3 enzymes: pyruvate dehydrogenase, dihydrolipoid transacetylase and dihydrolipoid dehydrogenase? What happens? Initially, I said 3 important reactions occur. One is decarboxylation. Pyruvate is decarboxylated, carbon dioxide is released, and then the electrons from pyruvate is transferred to DPP. And this is acted upon by the enzyme pyruvate dehydrogenase. And then the electrons are transferred to the lipoyl moiety of dihydrolipoyl transacetylase, and finally the electrons get transferred to the FAD molecule and NAD of dihydrolipoyl dehydrogenase, leaving back acetyl group. The acetyl group so left is now attached with CoA. The importance of attaching CoA moiety to acetyl group is that it is a highly unstable molecule. Upon binding with the CoA, acetyl-CoA becomes a very unstable, highly unstable molecule. Being unstable, it is prone to react and release energy. It can't stay stable, so it is prone to react and release energy, right? This is the final fate of pyruvate under aerobic condition, right? Okay, now speaking about the energetics of pyruvate dehydrogenase complex. So, via glycolysis, 2 pyruvate molecules were obtained, right? Each pyruvate yields 1 NADH molecule. Thus, there are 2 NADH molecules that can be oxidized through the electron transport chain. Okay, each of the NADH, as I already discussed, yields 3 ATP molecules. Therefore, in total, 6 ATP molecules are produced at the level of pyruvate dehydrogenase complex, right? So, these are the different fates of pyruvate, and we'll be discussing the TCA cycle in detail in the upcoming lecture.